Okay, at the end of the last video, I told you there was a problem, and hopefully you saw what the problem is. And that problem is that we've created a football team, and we've added a football player onto that team, but we've also added a baseball player onto that team. So what could possibly go wrong? Mix of football players and baseball players. Well, baseball players uh, don't know how to punt. They don't know how to score a touchdown. So if my football player class has methods to score touchdowns or methods to kick a ball, and I try to do that to a baseball player and they don't have that method, I'm going to have a runtime error. Something's going to happen and it's going to cause my program to crash. That could be a problem. Wouldn't it be nice if we prevented anybody from ever even adding a baseball player to a football team? So that's our goal here with generics. We want to turn this team into a generic class so that we can specify what kind of players we want that team to hold. So let's go over here to our team class and take a look at it. Now, the first thing you might have realized is when I created my array list, I did it without declaring a type diamond. And we talked about that a little bit in our array list video, that we could specify a type diamond when we create an array list. And we should do that. Okay, it's good form. You should always do it. There's some problems that can be caused if you don't. So really, when I made this, I should say this is an array list that holds type of player. And then over here, I would also put player. Now, immediately, this says redundant type arguments in new expression. Just use the diamond operator. So it's basically telling us, as I discussed before, that I don't need to repeat the type over here. I can just use the empty type diamond. And it knows that this is an array list of players because it declared it on this side. Early versions of Java required you to put it on both sides. Newer versions don't require you to put it when you call the constructor anymore. It infers it from whatever type you put here. So my array list is of players now, but it still lets me add the baseball player because my array list holds any kind of player I want to put in it. All right, so how do I modify my team so that it only can accept football players or baseball players, which is our two examples? Your first inclination may be to say, hey, let's make this an abstract class. Let's make team abstract and let other classes inherit team properties and methods, but we can make more specific types. We can make another class for a football team. We can make another class for a baseball team. And if we decide to expand this to basketball, we make another class for basketball teams. And where does it stop? If we want this to be a flexible environment, every time we add a different kind of team to our application, we're going to have to create new classes. And that's really not a great solution. What would be better is to make team into a generic. So when somebody creates a team, they can just tell what kind of players it holds. And much like we did with the array list, it involves type diamonds. So all I have to do right here is to put a type diamond after the name team, and I'm going to put a variable in there. Okay. And the variable we normally use is T. Okay. So T means somebody, when they create an object from this class, they're going to pass into this parameter a type that they want this team to hold. Okay, so it's almost universal. We stick a T in there for that. T for type. Okay, so I want to create a team, but I want my team to be of a certain type. Now, where do I use that type? When somebody creates a team, where is this variable going to be used? Where is this parameter that they typed in going to be used within the rest of our class? And the answer is anywhere I was using player, I can substitute with a T. So I want an array list of players. I want to be more specific than that. I'm going to stick a T in here. meaning if they make a football player, this is going to be an array list of football players. When they make the team, if they make a team of baseball players, it's going to be a team of baseball players. If they make a team of basketball players, it's going to substitute basketball player in here using that parameter. That's called a type parameter. Okay. So anywhere I used player, so down here, I created a variable called player that is of type player. I want to be more specific, and I want to say the specific kind, whatever this team is holding, I want it to be that kind of player. So I can put a T there. Now, you may notice that I broke something. Okay. It says can't find symbol, get name. When I said this type up here, that could be any type. So I talked about it as if we were going to pass in baseball players or basketball players or football players or whatever kind of player. But the fact is, somebody could put vehicle type. Somebody could put in an integer. Somebody could put in a string when they make their team. We want a team full of strings. We want a team full of integers. We don't really want that to happen, but right now there's no guarantee of that. So get name isn't guaranteed to work because the player might be of a type that doesn't have a get name because there's no guarantee that it's inheriting from the player class. We're going to fix that in a minute. But to get rid of this error, I'm going to comment out both these lines so I can test some things. And then we'll worry about fixing that error later. So I've added the type diamond for team, and I've went through anywhere, since I'm passing in a player, anywhere I was using player, I am substituting the T. Okay, so that lets me, I'm going to save this and go over to my testing class. And when I create my football team, I am now going to specify football player as the type, and new team, I need to put the type diamond over there, and I got to spell player correctly. Okay, so now I'm creating a team of football players. Okay, and because of that, when I try to add a baseball player, I get error checking right now at compile time. I'm getting ready to compile this, and it's telling me this won't compile, this won't work. Rather than the alternative we had before, which was accidentally adding baseball players to our football team and then calling one of their methods that doesn't exist for a football player, that would make a runtime error. So now, because of this type checking, I'm catching the errors now. Hey, you can't add a baseball player to your football team. So what can I do? Let's create a baseball team for our baseball player. Let's create a team, and this time we'll create a team that holds a baseball player collection. And let me spell it correctly. It's going to be a new team, and we'll call it the Reds. Shout out to Cincinnati. And then down here, I can certainly add Johnny Jones to my baseball team because he's a baseball player. And that works just fine. We can run it. Okay, I didn't have my items printing. We'll see that in a second. But I've now guaranteed that I can only add football players to my football team and baseball players to my baseball team by using a generic. Again, I created the class without a generic. Then I went and added the type diamond and substituted it in the places where I needed to substitute it. Now let's fix these errors here. So because technically when somebody passes in this type, it doesn't have to be a player. It could be an int, it could be a string, it could be anything. Because of that, we can't guarantee that it will have a get name, but we can restrict the type that the person creating this object, the code that's calling and creating a team object, we can restrict the types they can pass in here. And we can do something like this. I can say you can pass in any type you want as long as it extends the player class. Okay. And now I've guaranteed that the type they pass in to the type diamond must be a certain type of player, and that fixes my problem down here, get name. Now I'm guaranteed that all these types are player types, and they will all have a get name because player has a get name method in it. All right, so create the team, make it generic, decide how we want to limit the types that can get passed in, and now over here on our team demo, let's run it. Oh, I got an exception. Let me see what's causing that. Let me make sure I've saved everything. I'm not sure what happened there. I commented those out and uncommented them and saved it, and it worked. But either way, it's working now. George Smith got signed to the team. Oh, I can make that better. George Smith got signed to the team. Johnny Jones has been signed to the team. Let me go over to my team class. Concatenate something on here. Let's do this dot get name. Signed to the team brown, signed to the team reds. Okay, so there we go. We have a team. It is now a team of a generic type. We're storing all the members of the team in an array list of that type. So whatever type of player gets passed in here, if it's a football player, we're making an array list of football players, and we have an add player method that accepts football players as a parameter, and our generic type is finished. In the next videos, I'm going to go back and talk about some details that we may not have discussed in depth in these videos, but details that could be important to you, and we'll look at some of the little minutia about generics.